Every time you prepare cabbage, you probably do what nearly everyone does. You peel off the leaves, cut out the hard core, and toss it in the trash. That dense, tough center seems like the part no one wants. But today you are going to find out that the piece you have been throwing away is actually the most nutritionally valuable part of the entire cabbage, and that it contains the specific compound most directly responsible for healing the stomach lining. Once you understand what is concentrated in that core, you will never discard it again. Stomach inflammation affects an enormous number of people. Bloating after meals, persistent burning sensations, upper abdominal discomfort that has simply become part of daily life. Most people manage these symptoms with antacids or medication without ever addressing the underlying damage to the stomach lining itself. What cabbage core contains is something fundamentally different. It offers the raw material the stomach lining uses to actually repair itself. The compound responsible is called vitamin U, a name that comes directly from the word ulcer. Its precise chemical name is S-methylmethionine sulfonium chloride, and it works by directly stimulating the synthesis of proteins needed for gastric mucosal cell regeneration. The stomach lining is a delicate, protective layer that shields the stomach wall from acid, irritants, and infection. When this lining is damaged by stress, irregular eating, alcohol, or spicy food, gastritis and ulcers begin. Vitamin U accelerates the rebuilding of this protective layer. At the cellular level, think of it as a natural repair compound for the stomach wall. And research has confirmed that the highest concentration of this compound in the entire cabbage plant is found in the core, not the outer leaves, not the inner leaves, but specifically the dense central core that most people discard without a second thought. The clinical evidence for vitamin U is striking. In a landmark study, patients with confirmed gastric ulcers were given fresh cabbage juice to drink daily. At the time, the standard medical treatment for gastric ulcers required an average of 42 days for healing. The patients who received daily fresh cabbage juice showed an average healing time of just 7.3 days. That is a difference of more than 5 weeks. The researchers attributed this accelerated healing directly to the vitamin U content of the fresh raw cabbage. A separate clinical study involving 100 patients with peptic ulcers confirmed that vitamin U delivered through raw cabbage juice effectively promoted rapid ulcer healing. These were not small informal observations. These were published clinical findings that established cabbage as one of the most directly therapeutic foods for gastric tissue repair. There is a second major compound concentrated in the cabbage core that deserves equal attention. Cabbage belongs to the cruciferous vegetable family and, like all cruciferous vegetables, it contains compounds called glucosinolates. When these glucosinolates are broken down during chewing and digestion, they convert into sulforaphane, one of the most intensively researched natural anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer compounds identified in recent decades. The cabbage core contains a particularly high density of these glucosinolate precursors. Sulforaphane has demonstrated a specific and important effect on the stomach. Multiple research studies have found that sulforaphane from cruciferous vegetables inhibits the growth of Helicobacter pylori, the bacterium recognized as a primary cause of chronic gastritis, peptic ulcers, and gastric cancer. Laboratory studies have confirmed that sulforaphane reduces the ability of H. pylori to adhere to stomach wall cells and decreases the oxidative damage the bacterium causes to the gastric mucosa. For anyone dealing with chronic gastritis, this matters enormously because reducing H. pylori activity directly reduces ongoing damage to the stomach lining that vitamin U is trying to repair. These two compounds work in complementary ways within the same vegetable. Beyond gastric health, sulforaphane has been linked in large-scale population studies to meaningfully reduced risk of colorectal cancer, lung cancer, stomach cancer, breast cancer, and prostate cancer. It works by blocking signaling pathways that drive cancer cell growth, inducing programmed cell death in abnormal cells, and increasing the body's own production of protective antioxidant enzymes. The fact that the precursor to this compound is most densely concentrated in the part of the cabbage most commonly discarded represents a significant and entirely unnecessary nutritional loss. There is one critical point about preparation that completely changes how beneficial cabbage actually is. Vitamin U is extremely heat sensitive. When cabbage is boiled for extended periods, vitamin U is almost entirely destroyed. Research measuring nutritional changes through cooking found that total polyphenol content dropped by nearly half, and vitamin U was reduced to nearly undetectable levels after prolonged heat exposure. This means that how you prepare cabbage determines whether you actually receive its therapeutic benefits, or simply eat a cooked vegetable with most of its healing potential eliminated. Raw preparation preserves the full vitamin U and glucosinolate content. This is exactly how the clinical studies that demonstrated ulcer healing in under 8 days were conducted using fresh raw cabbage juice. If you prepare cabbage juice using both leaves and core, add a small apple or pear to reduce bitterness, and a slice of ginger for additional anti-inflammatory effect. You get a drink that delivers vitamin U directly to the stomach, lining within minutes of consumption. Drinking this on an empty stomach in the morning maximizes direct contact with the gastric mucosa. Begin with a small amount, around 100 milliliters, and increase gradually over several days. When cooking is preferred, the key is minimal time and low temperature. Steam cabbage including the core. Cut into wedges for no more than 5 minutes. This brief cooking time softens the cell structure enough for comfortable digestion, while preserving a meaningful portion of the heat-sensitive compounds. Pairing steamed cabbage with fermented soybean paste, miso, or a probiotic-rich condiment adds beneficial bacteria that support the gut environment that the stomach lining depends on for recovery. For raw preparation without juicing, slice the core as thinly as possible. Finely shredded raw core has a crisp, refreshing texture that works well in salads. Dress it with olive oil and a squeeze of lemon. The fat in the olive oil aids absorption of the fat-soluble glucosinolates, and the vitamin C from lemon juice supports mucosal repair. In combination with vitamin U, a practical 7-day approach for the first 2 days. Add fresh raw cabbage juice with core to your morning routine before eating. Days 3 and 4 include a finely shredded raw core salad with olive oil dressing at lunch. Day 5, prepare steamed cabbage wedges, including core at dinner, paired with a fermented condiment. Day 6, add finely chopped cabbage core to soup or broth, but add it only in the final minute of cooking to preserve its active compounds. Day 7, identify the method that fits most naturally into your routine, and plan to continue it consistently. Some important cautions. People with hypothyroidism or those taking thyroid medication should be cautious about large quantities of raw cabbage. Cruciferous vegetables contain goitrogens, compounds that can interfere with thyroid hormone synthesis, and this effect is stronger with raw consumption in higher quantities. Individuals taking blood-thinning medications should be aware that cabbage is high in vitamin K, which can affect medication efficacy, and should consult their physician about appropriate intake levels. Those with irritable bowel syndrome or a tendency toward bloating may find lightly steamed cabbage in smaller portions more tolerable than raw juice. Anyone with significant gastritis or ulcer symptoms should use dietary approaches as a complement to, not a replacement for, proper medical diagnosis and treatment. Individual responses to any food vary, and unusual symptoms warrant medical consultation. When selecting cabbage, choose heads that feel heavy and firm for their size, with crisp, fresh outer leaves. A larger, firmer core indicates higher density of the compounds most relevant to stomach health. Once cut, use the cabbage promptly, as vitamin C and other nutrients begin oxidizing once the cell walls are broken. Raw juice should be consumed immediately after preparation for maximum potency. The core of what we covered today. The cabbage core contains the highest concentration of vitamin U in the entire plant, a compound with clinical evidence supporting direct gastric, mucosal repair and dramatically faster ulcer healing. It also contains the highest density of glucosinolate precursors to sulforaphane, which inhibits H. pylori growth and provides anti-cancer activity. Both compounds are destroyed by prolonged heat, so raw juice, minimal Steaming, or finely shredded raw preparation preserves their effectiveness. Starting today, keep the core, use it, and let the part you once discarded become the most valuable part of your meal. If this video was helpful, please like it and share it with someone who struggles with stomach discomfort. Subscribe for more evidence-based nutrition content every week. Take care of your health, and we will see you next time.